Donald Trump says that J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, and Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, should be in jail. And liberals are running off with it. CNN saying Trump calls for the jailing of Illinois politicians, and boots are on the ground. The National Guard has arrived in Chicago after a court cleared Donald Trump to dispatch and deploy. Here we go. Trump probably shouldn't have posted this. Guys, whatever. I walk that back. I'll walk that back a little bit. Who am I? What do I know? You comment. Let me know what you think. But this is an escalation. Trump should play these things closer to the chest. We are now at the point where Trump is calling for the jailing of a governor and a mayor while deploying the National Guard. We are probably weeks, maybe even days away, who knows, from a declaration of under the Insurrection Act, calling these states to be in rebellion. It is happening very quickly. Rudyard Lynch came on Timcast IRL a year ago, and he predicted, that's crazy to think it's been a year. Wow. He predicted there would be 1,000 dead by April. And I said, that's crazy, dude. And I'm the Civil War guy. I was right. It certainly did not happen. He's made a lot of great predictions, and he's analyzed what's going on in this country very well, and he's not wrong. A lot of listless young men with no families, that's a dangerous mix you got there. That's a powder keg. But gradually, then suddenly, the reason I bring that up is because my view is that these things will take time. In the 1820s, they discussed civil war, but it didn't go anywhere until the 50s when Bleeding Kansas erupted, and eventually 1861 started the Civil War. However, for us here today, we have instant transmission data. Back then, it would take weeks and months to transmit a message. And to be fair, telegraph was coming out around that time. When was telegraph invented, actually? When was telegraph invented? It was 1844, 1837. So they did. I'm pretty sure they did have telegraph because I wanted to make sure because I was reading a lot about it. So they did have fast communication, but it still was substantially slower. Now, the moment it happens, we know it happened. Donald Trump calling for them to be in jail is going to result in a rhetorical escalation, which is going to result in an on-the-ground escalation, and we are headed towards a very, very dark place. How will they react? With Trump saying they should be in jail and boots on the ground, there is a decent probability they say, okay, we cannot allow federal law enforcement in this state because they're going to come for us. It's not a matter of political will anymore. If Pritzker ever genuinely believes the feds will arrest him, why wouldn't he say, defend me? Let me ask you guys a question. You have command, let's say you're a sheriff, and you've got a small town, maybe 10 deputies or something. And a clown says he's going to come and he's going to beat you to death and lock you in a box. You'd be like, hell no, right? You'd get your boys together and say, we got to watch out, there's a threat. Pritzker has commanded state troopers and, for now, the National Guard. Brandon Johnson, the Chicago police, to an extent. Now, you may be saying, Tim, I'm a man of honor, so I would do things differently. Fair point. These guys, let me ask you first, do you believe they're men of honor? I already know most of your answer. Comment below. The answer is no. With that being the case, do you think there is a probability that when faced with federal arrest, they will use local law enforcement to protect them? I think the answer is yes, absolutely. I don't view these guys as honorable. Now, Trump didn't do it. Trump wasn't in office, however. They arrested him. They locked him up. They went for his lawyers. What if Trump says, I'm going to jail these guys? What if he says, you are in insurrection, sedition, seditious conspiracy, and he actually moves to arrest Pritzker? Let me give you a scenario. So boots are currently on the ground. This we know. Texas National Guard have arrived in Elwood training facility. Could be on the streets this week. Let's say Trump deploys the National Guard. Pritzker and Johnson have already been heavily criticized over the actions of their law enforcement, notably CPD being instructed not to assist federal law enforcement, allowing Latin kings to move in on DHS that had been attacked by leftist terrorists. What happens if Trump says that is sedition? Maybe it's a stretch. Let's escalate a bit. Let's say they instruct police to back off. Trump says they should be in jail for this. That's what he said. That's what happened. Okay. Let's say the next incident is that Trump is trying to send in DHS, ICE, CBP, or otherwise, because they were just attacked. And they escalate. Brandon Johnson says, no. Police shut down that road. And so you get a couple of beat cops standing in the street saying, look, nobody can go through here. Feds are trying to get in to provide assistance to DHS that had just been rammed or attacked. Nobody's seriously injured or anything like this. But CBP says, hey, look, man, I don't got any beef with you guys, but we were told this road is closed and nobody's going in. Trump then says, the feds say to these guys, you are obstructing federal law enforcement. And they say, this is not federal jurisdiction. This is Chicago. And then what happens? Maybe it doesn't escalate from there. Maybe the feds then say, okay, fine. And they back off. DHS is then livid. My point is the lightest degree of escalation from we'll vacate and not help you to, well, we're actually securing the perimeter. Nobody's allowed in, not even you. Trump then says they have obstructed law enforcement, put ICE lives in danger. This is sedition against the government. We were attacked. Perhaps the escalation from there is Trump says, we're going to haul these people in for questioning, and they refuse. The avalanche occurs. Brandon Johnson and Pritzker are publicly defying Trump, posting messages saying, we will not allow federal law enforcement into these areas to make it more dangerous. Trump then says, they will be arrested. I will not tolerate insurrection and rebellion against the United States. They then say, we will use the full weight of law enforcement and the National Guard in our state to defend us. The National Guard is then instructed by Trump, you are being federalized under the Insurrection Act. You must obey my orders. Pritzker then says, that's illegal and unconstitutional, and Trump is trying to stage a coup. You must stop him. The National Guard then must decide, my country or my home, just like in the Civil War. I don't know. I'm just some guy complaining on the internet. But isn't it crazy that we're at this point already? The fact that in Oregon, PPD, Portland Police, are being instructed to create criminal cases against federal law enforcement. You remember this story, right? This is happening. Portland Police were instructed to take down information to build a criminal prosecution against several federal law enforcement agents. Gavin Newsom has put a law in place where he asserts jurisdiction over federal law enforcement, saying, take your masks off or else. DHS has instructed them not to do it. Does this just stop? No. What's the next step then? You tell me in the comments, because what do I know? Seriously, you tell me. I believe there's a decent probability that they will try to prosecute federal law enforcement. I believe following this, Trump will say absolutely not and refuse to allow. If Trump allows DHS and ICE to get arrested by local cops, DHS and ICE are going to be like, okay, we quit. What can Trump do? This could happen overnight. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. When I was speaking to Eric Prince on the Culture War show, I asked him, and many of you have heard me say this, but this is important in this context. Are you seeing any parallels right now with the United States to the countries you've worked in? And he said, the one thing I can say, it's overnight, gradual, then sudden, right? He says, everybody I've worked with says one day everything seems fine. The next day you woke up, there's no electricity, no running water, and chaos. Take a look at what's going on right now. Trump said that Pritzker and Johnson should be in jail. Now, that's just rhetoric for sure. But guys, someone goes on Blue Sky and says Tim Pool should die, right? Do you think I just go, it's just rhetoric? No, we call the FBI. We escalate our security. We beef up saying, get ready. Do you think Pritzker and Johnson are just like, meh, nothing will happen? No, I bet you they already called their lawyers. I bet you they're talking to their AGs. And I bet you they're saying, get ready for if Trump tries to make this move. I'm willing to bet that there's already a coalition of blue state governors that are having these conversations about what to do should Trump try to arrest them. We really are in heavy Civil War territory. And every day it seems to be getting crazier. Now, I can't predict the future because I don't know. All I'm doing is solving math problems. We have these stories in front of us. I read them quite a bit. Not all of them are correct. I then say, if X, then Y. That's all. If Donald Trump arrests Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, who's in charge of the state? Seriously. Lieutenant governor? Deputy mayor? I have no idea. How will the people react? Will it exacerbate tensions? Will leftists get radicalized? Possibly. So there's a bunch of variables and predictions one can make. We're trying to figure out what is the most probable outcome if Trump were to make a move like this. I don't know. I can only say based on history and what has happened before, what may happen. But this truly is an unprecedented time. I can tell you that Abraham Lincoln arrested members of the Maryland legislature, threatened Supreme Court justice, arrested journalists, suspended habeas corpus. So why wouldn't that happen? I honestly don't know. Maybe we get the next few years. Abraham Lincoln was elected president. That was in November. But he wasn't, you don't get sworn until March. They changed it to January because they're like, why the gap? It was because of travel and communications and getting everyone together to count the votes, So at the time, when it was announced that he had won the electoral college vote and everything like that, 7 states seceded, saying he's going to ban slavery, and they didn't want that to happen. Abraham Lincoln comes into office with these states having already declared secession and acting as though they were not part of the Union for months. The Confederacy existed. So Lincoln said, nah. But the fighting happened at Fort Sumter. It wasn't a real fight, but the feds were told to get out, South Carolina, and they said, no, it's our military base. Fighting happened. Nobody died except for one guy accidentally, so nobody killed each other. The Confederates then amassed at Manassas, just south of D.C. Nobody believed it would be a war. In fact, Virginia and I think it was Tennessee, North Carolina, it was 4 states, were 2-1 favorites favoring the Union. The 7 southern states that seceded were in favor, but not, it wasn't absolute. So the Battle Bull Run happens, and the Confederacy routs the Union, and they say, we did it, boys. We proved to them we mean business, and there ain't going to be no war now because we won. And they go home. Lincoln goes, nah, rallies the troops and says, that's it. We're putting an end to the rebellion. The intention at that moment, with only one small battle from Abraham Lincoln, was to send troops to the government of these states and remove from power their heads of state. When this happened, 4 other states went, holy crap, and seceded. Abraham Lincoln was like, uh-oh, Maryland and Delaware are slave states. So he went, nah. Suspended habeas corpus in Maryland, in a corridor through Maryland, and said, and because we have to be able to get to D.C. from Philly, and then eventually had a third of the Maryland legislature arrested because they were sympathetic to the Confederacy, because he said, I will not allow you to vote against me, to join the Confederacy, and for this union to crumble. After the fighting went on for a long time, the history of the Civil War is a lot more complex than that. Sherman was like, I'm going to end this here war. Flicks a cigarette, and then just razes the South in his march to the sea. Scorched earth. Raze every farm. Smash every railroad. Kill everyone in his path. Destroy their ability to live, and they cannot wage war. Wow, man. Brutal. They say all is fair in love and war. Before all that happened, I'm pretty sure. My timeline could be off, but I'm pretty sure before all that. The Confederacy marched into Pennsylvania, the Battle of Gettysburg. The principal motivator was that they wanted to shock Northerners into thinking, if you want war with us, we will bring war to you, and this is what you voted for. Make them understand what it meant. The only problem is the North had funding and resources from foreign governments. They had recently equipped breech-loading rifles while the Confederacy was using muzzle-loading muskets. Not the only reason they lost. There were a variety of reasons. The stories are actually really crazy. We live pretty close to Gettysburg, so we've been up there and got to go to these tours and read all this stuff. They do reenactments all the time. And they were routed. The Union won. So what my point in all of this right now? Understand what Lincoln was doing and why he sent troops in. What was the purpose of the troops? He wanted them to go to these state capitals and take them over. If Trump's deploying the National Guard already and saying these people should be in jail, we could very well be in that same moment where historically they say Civil War started with an attempted assassination on Trump's life. It escalated with the assassination of Charlie Kirk and several terror attacks on ICE facilities. Trump then ordered military into several states. Now it sounds condensed. We experience on a day-by-day basis just go, well, this is going a lot slower, right? The revolutionary period Bleeding Kansas was 7 years of murder in the streets before it finally kicked off. In 50 to 100 years, they might write back and say the Civil War started when Trump called for the arrest of the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago and then sent in National Guard, ultimately leading to the arrest of these individuals or the states rallying together to stand against the National Guard. I don't know what's going to happen. No one believed it at the Battle of Bull Run. No one believed it. So you believe what you want. You tell me what's going to happen. Comment below. Smash the like button. Share the show. Stay tuned. More to come tonight. Timcast IRL, of course, is still going to happen. Guest hosted. We got a whole array of celebrity guest hosts. Matt Gaetz, wow, hitting out of the park last night. Whew, spicy show talking APAC. Check it out, my friends. Stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next segment.